What's up, guys? So, quite a while ago on Twitter, I saw a bunch of Smash Bros but awesome posts, and the first few posts of that kind were primarily just cutting out Fire Emblem characters entirely, and after seeing that trend going on, I was inspired to make this video where I will be replacing a majority of the Fire Emblem characters on the Smash Bros roster to characters that are more unique in hopes to try to fix some of the hate that the Fire Emblem franchise receives from the Smash community. Because honestly, though I don't share the hatred of Fire Emblem reps, I do understand the complaints that relate to them, since for the most part, all of the Fire Emblem reps are anime sword fighters. So now getting straight into it, I honestly don't feel like we need to replace all of them. So before I get into who I'm replacing, I'm going to list the 3 characters out of the 8 Fire Emblem characters that I'm going to be keeping and my reasons as to why. And if I happen to replace one of your favorite characters, I do apologize, but also try to keep an open mind with this, because I'm just trying to add more diversity to the Smash roster. The first character that I'm going to be keeping is Marth. I don't really feel like I need to explain as to why. I mean, when someone says Fire Emblem, he is the character who should pop in your mind. Because if you don't already know, he was the main protagonist of the very first Fire Emblem. And personally to me, I feel like that would be cutting Cloud out of Smash and throwing Zack in instead. It just doesn't really feel right. Now, with that being said, I do think it would be a good idea to alter him a little bit by making Lucina take up 4 of the alternate skin slots for Marth, since she is an Echo fighter of his after all. Now, the next character that I'm going to be keeping is Ike. This one is primarily from personal bias, because Ike is one of my favorite characters, if not my all-time favorite from this franchise. And it also helps that he fights entirely different from the rest of the Fire Emblem cast, being that he is slower and hits so much harder than any other character that will be on this list. Now, finally, the last character that I am going to be keeping is Robin. Honestly, even though he is a sword fighter through and through, his gadgets do offer some pretty unique gameplay compared to the rest of... wait, shit, wrong Robin. Now that the bad joke of the video is out of the way, the real reason for why I'm keeping these two are pretty much the same as for Ike. Robin fights completely different from every other Fire Emblem character, being the only one that really utilizes projectiles and magic. And honestly, I just love how unique they are for that. And now, before I get to the characters that will be replacing these guys, I do feel like I should offer some kind of explanation as to why I cut the rest of them. And honestly, for most of them, they fight almost exactly the same as Marth, with a little bit of Ike thrown in for Chrom. And for a franchise that has almost 600 total playable characters, I honestly don't get why 3 of them are more or less clones of Marth. I'm Cutting Corrin purely because of the amount of hate that they got when they were first released for Smash 4. And finally, with Byleth, I'm cutting them for more or less the same reason as well. Though their moveset is extremely unique, I do think it's a little underwhelming. And Byleth is the one character that I will ever say that I think Sakurai didn't really handle that well. And personally, there are a handful of other characters that are from Three Houses that I would have liked to see a lot more than Byleth. So now that we have gone through all of the characters that I'm keeping and cutting, we have 5 character slots to work with. And before I continue, this list is going to be comprised of primarily characters that I think would be interesting to see in the game, because the possibility for all of these characters actually showing are pretty much next to none, given that some of them are not well known enough by people that aren't Fire Emblem fans. So with that being said, for the most part, it's pretty safe to say that there won't be any other sword characters on this list. Let's get to finding the replacements. And for this, I'm going to be staying within the same game for each character that I cut. So, for example, with replacing Byleth, I'm going to be choosing another Three Houses character. So, first up on this list is finding Roy's replacement. Now, honestly, this was the easiest pick. I would replace him with Lyn in a heartbeat, because the first game that he appears in is Blazing Blade, and she is also right there with him on the box art. Now, sure, I know that you could argue that she is a possibility of eventually joining Smash because she is one of the most recognizable characters in the franchise, but given that she's currently a trophy in several Smash games, I don't think we'll see her as a playable character anytime soon. But that isn't the point of this video. Obviously, the reason I picked her is because, as I said, she is one of the most popular female Fire Emblem characters, as well as being one of the very few characters from Blazing Blade and Binding Blade that definitely deserve to replace Roy. And I know that I said that I wasn't going to be including any sword fighters, but she is the only exception. Unlike with Roy and the rest of Marth's clones, she would be extremely fast but wouldn't hit as hard, so essentially she would be Sheik if Sheik used a sword. Now, in terms of movesets, I think as a finishing move she could also utilize her assist trophy attack as her side B. So it would work similar to, say, Fox and Falco's side Bs, or even Wolf's. And I think a fun little spin on her moveset would to be having her use a bow as her neutral B, just like Link, since she is able to use bows when she gets promoted to her unique class, the Blade Lord. And speaking of Blade Lord, I think her down B should be used as a means to transition to the Blade Lord class, where she now uses 2 swords as her official art suggests, and in the Blade Lord form, she pretty much deals slightly increased damage and in addition has an increased critical hit rate similar to that of Hero. But to balance it out, this form also makes it very easy for her to be launched, and for the rest of her moveset, I think she should just fight how she did in Project M. And in terms of alternate appearances, her Blade Lord outfit would be half of her alternate skins. I don't really have much in terms of inspiration for the color schemes of these alternate skins, but I think that she should have one where she of course resembles Roy, and some other characters that I would like to see referenced through her alternate skins would be Sarah, Florina, Faye, and Hector. Now, next up on the list is finding the replacement to Lucina, and for that I decided to go with the Pegasus Knight, Cordelia. So before I explain why I chose her, I just want to say that I don't think it's a good idea for her to use a Pegasus whatsoever, since she would probably end up having the biggest hitbox in the game as a result of her riding on the back of a fucking flying horse. But of course, it would be a nice nod to her appearance in Fire Emblem Awakening if her Pegasus was either a part of her final smash or showed up in her recovery somehow. And now, part of why I wanted to take Byleth off of the roster is to replace them with another character that utilizes a lance exactly like Byleth does with their side directional attacks. And one of the reasons why I picked Cordelia is because one of Lucina's alternate color schemes is inspired by her. So now, ideally for Cordelia, her forward smash and side B would work very similarly to Byleth's. She wouldn't have the outrageous reach like Byleth's forward smash and Sephiroth's entire existence, purely for balancing reasons. But if she did end up having that insane range, her attacks could just be a little bit on the slow side or relatively weak, except for at the tip of the spear. I personally would rather them being slower since she isn't that fast in Awakening, but to make up for all of her stronger attacks being a little bit on the slow side of things, all of her neutral attacks and tilts should probably be a little bit on the quicker side, and obviously won't have as much reach. Her neutral B could have her throw a javelin to offer her some extra range, not really like she needs it though. Now with Cordelia, I do have a bit more of an idea of what some of her alternate skins will end up looking like. So of course we will be starting off with one of her skins resembling Lucina, pretty much exactly to the T, from the gold hair accessory to the blue hair and blue armor. Next, I would also like one to resemble Tiki, primarily because I was going to replace Lucina or Chrom with Tiki. I just honestly couldn't think of a good moveset for a girl who can turn into a full-blown dragon without it being straight up underwhelming, especially considering how overpowered she is already as a trophy. And another alternative skin of yet another character I thought of using instead is Olivia, but I couldn't think of a way to make her flow well since she is a dancer, which in Fire Emblem plays more of a support role, very few of them having an actual way of attacking, somewhat similar to bards. Now, some additional characters I would like to see referenced are other Pegasus Knights from other games. So for example, the very first Pegasus Knight that we meet, Keita, which shows up in any given one of Marth's games, Florina from Blazing Blade, Marcia from Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, and finally Ingrid from Fire Emblem Three Houses. Now, next up is finding the replacement for Chrom, which is yet another character from Fire Emblem Awakening, and I think an extremely exciting choice would be Tharja, or Tharja. Not only is she another extremely popular character like Lyn, but also given that she is a dark mage in the game, I think she could end up fighting so unique to the entire roster, utilizing powerful spells for her smash attacks as well as having some hexes that deal damage over time similar to Joker's side B, as well as an extremely devastating move that is similar to Sephiroth's neutral B, and a lifesteal move that copies Robin's down B. And for balancing, she would definitely need to be a glass cannon, with one of the lowest weights in the game, so when you're fighting against her, it is relatively easy to launch her. Moving on to alternate color schemes for Tharya, one of the alternate skins is pretty simple enough, which if you know this character at all, you probably would see it coming. And it's Robin. But not just any Robin, of course, I'm talking about Grima. So of course we have the red eyes followed by the white hair. And honestly, the only other really major change is for the fabric covering her body to just turn into whatever color this is, and then boom, Tharya is cosplaying as Grima. Now, for the rest of them, they are honestly way too tedious for me to go into any major detail, and I'm laughably bad at using Photoshop, so I'm not even going to attempt to recolor Tharya myself. But for some alternative skins, I think using Odin, the nephew of Chrom, as an inspiration for one would be a great choice, because honestly, there aren't enough good yellow skins on any characters in Smash. And the only other idea involving an actual character that I have is for Lysithea, who is yet another powerful mage in Fire Emblem, specifically from the game Three Houses. And since I sacrificed using her as Byleth's replacement for Tharya's inclusion, I think it would be a nice nod to at least have a colorway for my favorite Fire Emblem waifu. And the final idea that I have for Tharya's alternate skin is to resemble the concept art for the Dark Mage class from Fire Emblem Awakening. And now with just 2 slots left, we move on to replacing Corrin from Fire Emblem Fates. And Takumi, Corrin's stepbrother, will be the character that takes their place. Now, given that he is an archer, I think mixing his moveset a little bit with spears would be a pretty good addition, so he isn't just going around smacking people with his bow. As amusing as that would be, it really isn't all that practical. And also, since he can become a spear fighter in Fates, there is also a lore explanation as to why he uses spears. So, diving into his moveset, I think his up smash should work like Sephiroth's up tilt, primarily being able to hit the top platform on the battlefield, but with some extra power. And I think the rest of his smash attacks should primarily be him shooting arrows in different ways. And I think a pretty cool idea for his down smash would be that he lets loose a handful of arrows in front of him that essentially act as Snake's forward smash, dealing quite a bit of damage and also having a lot of knockback. Obviously, it won't be as devastating as getting hit with an RPG, but taking several arrows to the knee won't feel nice either. Now, alternate appearances for Takumi would be pretty simple enough. The first one will be referencing his older brother Ryoma, mostly because he is another one of the most popular characters from these games, if not being the most popular male character in these games. Another alternate appearance should reference Oboro. Some other characters that I think should be referenced through alternate skins are his older sister Hinoka, his step-siblings Corrin and Azura, and finally Camila, because she is also one of the most popular female characters in the franchise. And now finally we have Byleth. And honestly, with Byleth, I had the hardest time trying to decide who to replace them with. Originally, I wanted to go with Lysithea, mainly because she is my favorite character from Three Houses, as well as having potential to be the hardest hitting character that isn't a physical attacker. And personally, I think having a character that plays like a mix between Robin and Zelda would be a pretty fun addition as well. But given that I had the magic user already covered, I thought about using Edelgard because she is one of the most iconic characters of Three Houses, but after going through 5 or 6 different possible characters, I decided to go with possibly the most well-known member of the Golden Deers, which is Hilda. Primarily because my biggest complaint about all of Fire Emblem's characters in Smash is that not one of them uses an axe. Despite her size and stature though, she would end up hitting like a truck, as well as being a tiny bit bulkier comparable to Ike. With that being said, she would obviously be a little bit on the slow side, and honestly I think that she should have the same animations for Byleth's down B and down smash. And though unlike with Byleth, who uses an axe that isn't made for them, Hilda uses an axe that is tied to her crest, so I think that her down special and down smash should be a little bit quicker. Also, she should have a little bit more flair for each of her moves, since only she can activate her axe's full potential, such as it glowing with power for the final hit of a combo, or even her dash attack. And her final smash, in my opinion, should be her signature move, Apocalyptic Flame. And though these moves are pretty much nothing different from a normal animation, aside from having buffs in Three Houses, I think actually having a 5 fiery apocalypse happen in either the cutscene or the background when she slams down the axe as the final hit would be way more interesting than the PNG final smash that Byleth has. And I think it should also have some lingering effects that deal another 15 to 20% if you didn't get launched into oblivion by that attack. And I know it does sound ridiculous, but Hilda is truly a brutal little powerhouse, and I think that her final smash should reflect that. And now moving on to her appearance, of course 2 of her skins will be how she appears in the game normally, and for the 3 pre-time skip appearances, I think they should resemble some other members of the Golden Deers, and personally I think that they should resemble Marianne, Leonie, and I know I said Golden Deers specifically were going to be taking up these alternative skin inspirations, but the 3rd spot for her pre-time skip outfit is going to go to her childhood friend from the Ashen Wolves house, Balthus, purely because I think alternative costumes with different hair colors are the best ones, and her outfit would also closely resemble theirs as well. And for the post-time skip outfits, she would resemble the 3 house leaders as well as copying their color scheme. And the finishing touch for Hilda to make her extremely unique from the rest of the roster is, since she is extremely flirty in 3 houses, I think giving her a taunt that has a hitbox similar to Kazuya and Luigi's, where if you hit an enemy with the taunt, it will lower their attack power towards Hilda for a certain amount of time. Similar to when playing with items, you pick up the metal box and your knockback resistance increases. But obviously Hilda's taunt will not be as significant as that. Now, there you have it. A brand new Fire Emblem roster for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and if you would like to swap out some of the characters that I decided to choose, don't be afraid to let me know that as well. And now, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.